The gory days are here to stay, the 80s horror show. Take a stroll down memory's lane, it's time to start the show. The gory days, the gory days, the gory days, the gory days.
Welcome to the Gory Days, the show where we take a stroll down memory lane to remember our favorite horror movies from the 1980s and early 1990s. Something happened, listeners. I was walking around the Gory Days office headquarters, talking to some of the employees and interns there, and here, and something changed from the start of the show to I don't know, we started with Pumpkinhead, which was like kind of a B movie, but also kind of a fondly remembered movie. We moved into, I think it was Ghoulies after that, and just slowly, I feel like I've been kind of falling away from horror movies from the 80s and toward in actually just bad movies from the 80s. And we had planned to do this week Inferno from, I think it was 1981 or 2, an Italian horror movie that I don't know what I was thinking. So instead, we picked a very different movie today that I'm really excited to talk about. But before we get into any of that, I want to introduce I was going to say my guest, but to tell you the truth, I'm kind of, if I can be totally honest, grooming him into being a co-host to stick around and help me with the show. So without further ado,
it's me.
Yeah, it's Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Yeah. What do you think of the offices here? Some of the interns floating around here.
Yeah, it's very nice.
It's busy. It's busier than ever here at Gory Days HQ.
Yeah. I gotta say, is the elevator working now?
Just do me a favor and try not to get too specific. I don't want people to know where we're located.
Right.
I don't want people to know that we have. You just mentioned an elevator, so I feel like that narrows down.
That narrows it down.
It's not a one-story building, or at least it's not on the first floor of a building.
Right.
Yeah. But without being too specific.
Sorry, it won't happen again.
Without being too specific.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love it. Yeah.
Specifically, what do you mean? What do you think? What do you like?
Without being specific.
Well, don't be too specific. But like,
too specific. It has good ambience. Ambiance. How do you say that?
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Do you mean like the lights? Like the lighting? Like the lighting?
Lighting's good. It's got good decor.
So you didn't like the fish tank, the aquarium?
That
was new. That wasn't here last week, but you don't approve of it.
It's not that I don't approve. I just didn't really notice it.
I saw you walk right past it, and you looked at it.
Well, I saw like a tank. I didn't see any fish, if that's...
Well, there aren't fish in it. It's a fish tank.
Yes,
it's brand new.
Okay.
And the fish tank is brand new, and you didn't seem to remark on it at all. That's fine. Eric! Get rid of the fish tank!
What?
Just get rid of it! The fish tank, get rid of it!
If you could just add some fish, maybe. It was just like a first look. I don't know. I mean,
don't do that. You don't have to pant. Look, is this because I want you to be my new co-host?
It's a lot of pressure, and I feel like I have to like the things you like.
Don't do that.
Okay.
Just be.
All right.
I want you to be totally relaxed. Just totally cool. We're on the same team here. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So how much do you make?
Oh wow, that's quite a loaded question here.
I mean, just out of curiosity, like yearly salary.
Oh man.
Do you want me to guess?
Yeah, please.
Okay, let's see. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at the way you're dressed. I'm looking at what you do. What is this shirt? Oh, it's a Funny or Die, the Twisted Humor Tour?
Yeah.
When was that?
So, funny enough, I got this at UCSB when they did the tour at UCSB.
What tour? Like a stand-up tour?
It was an Axe stand-up tour.
Oh, cool.
With, what's the name? Danny Glover or Donald Glover? Donald Glover. Childish Gambino.
Oh, wow. Was he as Donald Glover or Childish Gambino?
No, he was himself.
Okay.
So was...
I guess he's Childish Gambino when he's rapping.
Yeah. All right.
I love that song, This Is America. Did you see the music video?
Incredible, yeah.
Yeah, it was intense.
I was a fan of his, like, going all the way back to the Derek comedy.
Yeah. And, like, Mystery Team. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Oh,
I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen skits of it.
Yeah. Oh, super funny, yeah. Mm-hmm. And now he's gone on to all kinds of things. He was in Community for that stretch. He's got his own show, Atlanta, now.
He's so talented, it's painful. It's painful to watch.
Really?
Like, I'm like, damn, I wish I could aspire to this, but it's so unreachable.
I know what you mean. Do you know Bo Burnham?
Mm-hmm.
I think of, every time I see something about Bo Burnham, I think, like, he's like my age, and he's doing just things that I used to do just for fun and things, but he's managed to turn it into this whole career, and it's so hard. I haven't watched any of his like newest stuff because it's just so hard. And like I always thought, because it's like I identify as a creative, you know, kind of, and you know, with a little bit of anxiety and depression kind of stunts that, and people like Bo Burnham may be able to use that to catapult themselves. But why do you shirk at Donald Glover? Like, is that something you want to do? Is that something you think you could do?
I mean, he's a comedian / actor. You know, what's
so hard about that?
I could make funny stuff. I could be on TV.
That's another thing. I feel like there's
okay, I can't rap, but
well, I feel that way
2
too.
2 out of 3.
I feel like with comedians especially, it's like, well, I've made my family laugh. I make people laugh. I could do that. I could get up on stage and do stand-up or something. But there's that show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, on I think it's on Amazon, where it's a it's a period piece about I think it's like based on a true story about a woman rising in stand-up comedy. And man, that show has given me such a different appreciation for what like a tight 5 means and how you craft a stand-up act.
Hold on, what's a type 5?
Tight 5 is like 5 minutes of just good jokes, like a laugh.
A 5-minute routine.
Tight 5-minute routine, like for an open mic or things like that. Like, I don't watch the show I'm Dying Up Here or those like more autobiographical. That's a Jim Carrey produced show about stand-up in the 80s and 90s in LA. And so it is kind of biographical in that way. But it's like historical fiction. Do you know anything about like the stand-up comedy scene or like what the world is like? Why am I asking you this?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
See, this is what I'm talking about. You're my co-host. You got to keep me from rambling.
No, it's good. It was an interesting take. I don't know much about it.
Thanks. Yeah. Let me see. How are we doing on time? God damn, really? Oh my god. Okay. Let's see. The axe twisted comedy.
Right. You know who else was in there? God, what's her name? She's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think her name is like Chelsea something.
Oh, Chelsea Handler? No, not Chelsea. Chelsea Peretti.
Yeah.
Chelsea Peretti.
She was in that too.
Chelsea Peretti's really way funnier than Chelsea Handler. But yeah, Chelsea Peretti. She used to be a writer on Parks and Rec.
Really?
Yeah, and has since been like catapulted into the front of the camera on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
I'm a big fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I love I think it's like in the pilot where they reveal the new captain's gay, right? Or maybe in the first few episodes.
Yeah.
But
it's really early, yeah.
I thought that was great. Yeah, more incidental gay characters. Kind of like our movie today. I don't know. I guess we can, kind of tease a little bit of it that we're talking about Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Did you know Clive Barker's gay?
I did not.
Yeah, he's openly gay. And
I don't really know who Clive Barker is.
Oh, he's the guy who wrote and directed this movie.
Makes sense, yeah.
What? Okay. When I pick a movie, when I say, hey, we're going to watch a movie for this, by the way, you texted me.
Yeah.
Was it like on Wednesday, I think you asked? You were like, hey, did you pick a movie yet?
Right,
You said, are we still on? And I said, oh, yeah, we'll do Inferno. And then I changed my mind, and then I said, oh, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I was like, oh, screw that. No, let's do a good movie. And I picked Hellraiser. What did you do when I picked that movie and sent you that text?
I'm normally pretty good about seeing things in advance, but this time I was like, I'm just gonna wing it, see it right before.
So what was the first time? When's the first time you saw this movie?
Today,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, I normally do it at least a day before, but no, not today.
Is that usually walk us through your usual the routine?
Prep work,
from getting the movie, okay, this is the movie that we're gonna do.
Movie.
What do you do?
I usually go on IMDb and see the ratings of the movie. See what I expect myself.
So you and me. Are you serious? Is that what you do?
Oh yeah.
The first thing you do is you look up what you're supposed to think.
No. This doesn't influence my opinion.
Okay.
Convince
me.
Yeah. This one had a pretty good rating. I thought I was expecting.
That's what I'm saying. You set your expectations for either really low or really high.
A little bit, but I am pretty independent of that.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Then what would you do?
Then I'll quickly look at Wikipedia and read through the plot a little bit.
You literally
just a little bit, you know? Just skip it.
The Wikipedia plot is usually the entire plot of the movie. That's just like bullet points.
Right. To me, the plot is not that important.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Sorry for interrupting again. Then what?
Yeah, then I'll usually put it on and see how long it is, so I could realize, like when I'll be done with this.
when
when the torture will end. I don't know, just kind of have an idea.
When you can go to the bank afterward if it's still going to be open.
You got to fly out the rest of my day. Yeah, then I'll usually sit down and watch the movie.
With a piece of paper and pen.
Piece of paper and pen.
Yeah. And you'll
notes.
jot down 2 or 3 thoughts that you had throughout the movie.
Yeah, sometimes it's more, but yeah.
And what apps are you usually playing while watching the movie?
It depends on how much I like it. Sometimes I'll have some things in the background, but if it's a really good movie, then
okay, well, this was before you realized you're a co-host, so maybe things will change.
Yeah, now I'm going to take this seriously.
But hey, I want this to be free. I want you to be relaxed. I want this to be cool and fun. Oh my god, man. You do all of the things that I was like, oh, I hope he doesn't do this. I hope he's not going to say this. Because that's what I do with movies I know I'm never going to see. If I know I'm never going to see Kong Skull Island, I look up the crap on Wikipedia and I read everything I want. Or like, I'm never going to... I watched Psycho recently and I thought that was really good and I realized I'm never going to watch Psycho 2. So I'll go on and read something like that. Just because I know I'm never going to watch it. But you like to temper your expectations.
Well, I don't read the whole plot most of the time. If it sounds good to begin with, I'm like, okay, I'll stop and watch the movie. But if I'm like, I'll keep reading.
That's great. Oh. So off mic, you mentioned, off microphone. Sorry,
right.
Hi, Mike. Off mic, you mentioned that you went to the optometrist recently, and you had a harrowing experience. Tell us all about that.
Sure.
Give us all the gritty details, the emotions, the things you were going through. Paint us a word picture.
Yeah, so I went to the optometrist. I normally wear glasses, never wore contact lenses.
Were there clouds in the sky? Were there birds? Was it sunny? Was it cloudy? Was it raining?
Oh, God. It was yesterday around 9. Pretty nice day, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah. So I went to the optometrist and... decided, hey.
And was it a shriveled up old crone with long spindly fingers and like librarian chains?
Oh wow, we go to the same place. No, she was a very nice lady. Kind of young. It was a friendly place. Nothing like what you described.
Cool. Then what happened? Did they use a big device to inspect your eyes and make sure that you didn't have any bugs or demons trapped behind them?
That's exactly what they were looking for, demons, and I was clear for that.
You're supposed to stop me from doing crap like this. No one is enjoying this. I'm certainly not. I'm doing it. It's so... It's hard doing this show without an audience. I don't know what's working and what's not.
No, this is great.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so no demons. I am colorblind, although we didn't go through that test, but I would have failed. There was like this...
You're colorblind?
I am colorblind, yes.
So, like, right now, you must get this all the time, but you see like a dog in black and white?
No, I see what I think is normal. I mean, who knows how normal it is.
That's kind of cool. I never thought about that.
But, yeah.
Color is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah. Except I
have thought about that. We've dealt with this before.
Yeah, we have.
I'm trying to shed this weird like personality I wear for this show. We played a PSVR game, PlayStation VR,
right,
where color came into play, where one of us had to shout to the other what color thing like a character was wearing, and it was pretty fun. Added an extra level of difficulty.
I think it made it like because when you went first on the selecting, and I had to describe what was going on, and I was describing like the eyes as white the entire time, and then when you play it, you're like, oh, blue eyes. I was like, wait a minute, what is this?
So what is it like? I mean, for our listeners, obviously it's no different. Like if I asked a person that was born blind, they wouldn't think it was any different. But like, I don't know, from your experiences, I'm sure you've had friends that has it ever affected you?
Well, yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't know I was colorblind because they don't tell you this. Right. So I thought, I must be stupid because I can do the shape stuff okay, but clearly I'm not smart enough to do the colors.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So when I found out I was colorblind, it was some relief because I was like, hey, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
But also realized I couldn't be a pilot, which is something I kind of wanted to do.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not a reference to Little Miss Sunshine?
No. It's something I was...
Because that's literally what Paul Dano goes through with Little Miss Sunshine.
I went through that.
Oh my God, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
How young was that when you
I was 10.
when your dreams were shattered?
10,
oh my God.
My mom was ecstatic because she doesn't want me to be a pilot and all that.
So she was probably relieved that A, you're not stupid,
right?
And B,
well, see, I didn't really talk about colors very much, so I don't know if she was like, "Hey."
Yeah, I guess when would you really bring that up?
Yeah.
Unless I don't know. I don't have kids. Maybe you talk about colors a lot when they're in their developmental stages, but...
And it's not like it was so bad that I didn't know any colors. They're just, slightly off.
Yeah,
so, red would look like green sometimes.
Oh, I was going to say, you can drive.
Yeah, I can drive, and here's why. The red looks like red, whatever I think is red. The yellow looks like a little bit brighter red, so no problems there. And the green looks like white.
Well, also the placement. They're on top of each other, so you've grown up knowing when the top one is light, it's okay to go. When the bottom one isn't, yeah.
The only scary thing is, sometimes if it's raining, I'll be driving and then I see, a white light, so I think, oh, it's a street light, and then it'll turn red.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That hasn't resulted in anything bad, right?
I had to slam the brakes, but...
Does that mean you have, a special license? Does it say on your license...
License to kill.
License to be colorblind?
No, it's not really.
Because on mine, I wear glasses. I'm nearsighted, so I need to wear glasses. On my license, it says corrective lenses and then my prescription, so that if I ever got caught driving without glasses, they would know. But yours doesn't say, this guy's colorblind.
Sir, do you know how colorblind you're going?
That's true. What would that accomplish? That you weren't wearing your colorblind corrective glasses?
I've heard about these. I'm kind of...
Do they make those?
They do. They kind of make these... I took the test on their website to see if it would help, and they're like, "No, you're too far gone."
Oh wow, that's kind of mean.
Yeah, it didn't state it that way. They said there's a 30% chance of this working or something like that, something even lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a great show planned for today. We're talking about the movie Hellraiser by Clive Barker, and that's it. I kind of wish we had some more things to hype on here, ooh, and later we'll be talking to blank, or we'll be taking some calls from this, but...
Let's take some calls.
Well, maybe you don't need to do anything else. No. Oh, do you want to take some calls? Do you want to try to do that? Oh, okay. Oh, we got a phone call coming in here. We got the board lighting up here. You don't have to do the mouth thing. We'll add it in post.
Oh, okay,
don't worry.
right.
Yeah, we're taking a call here. Hello, you're on the Gory Days.
Hi, is this the Gory Days?
Yes, this is on the Gory Days. You're listening with Kyle and Mike. Mike, say hi.
Oh my God, hi.
Wait, I'm both caller and B?
Well, yeah, you got to be here. You got to talk to the caller. This isn't working.
Oh, man.
We'll try that again in the future. I like the idea of doing that, of having characters call or people. We could even do people from the movie calling or things like that, or during it's oh, I was the dad and this isn't. Oh, it's crazy what happened.
By the way, the timer stopped.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not because of the time stop. I just, I don't know. Maybe I closed it or something.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
I feel like that was probably a good enough time. So, yeah, we got a great show for you today. But before that, I want to take a quick break and... hold on. Jeez. Let's get this clean. We got a great show for you today on the Gory Days. Mike and I are talking about Clive Barker's Hellraiser right after the break.
The Gory Days, the Gory Days, the Gory Days.
So hi, first of all, my name's Kyle. Nice to meet you. What's your name?
Eric.
Hi, Eric. So what am I looking at here? This is an audio medium, so we're going to have to describe for the listener what you do and what I'm looking at.
Okay, this is my company called Monster Tees. We specialize in Monster T-shirts.
I see, Monster Tees. Gotcha.
Yes.
Spelled T-E-A-S-E.
Yes. I'm sole owner. I turned my garage into my store.
Okay.
And
where are you based out of then?
Orange County.
Oh, okay. That's where I'm born and raised. Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, Irvine.
Orange, Orange.
Actual
City
Orange. Oh,
right,
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay,
definitely.
So kind of local.
Right.
So are you an artist then? You design all of these?
I do some of the designs and also all the word prints, but a lot of the designs, the 80s style designs that you see, are all done from one of my buddies that lives in Argentina.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so you've outsourced this.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
because unfortunately, running this by myself, I have to have people do a lot of my art just because I don't have time to do it.
Is this does this pay the bills? Is this full time for you?
No.
No? Okay,
No.
what do you do otherwise to
Actually,
make ends meet?
I work at Verizon Wireless.
Oh, so does my dad. That's
Nice.
insane. Wow, we
Really?
got a lot
in
in common.
In Orange County?
No. He worked for corporate. So
Okay, I was
yeah.
gonna say, oh no.
So what's your favorite part about this?
Just being able to share like my love for monsters.
Oh, okay, so
You know?
yeah, what do you love about horror? What brings you like into this world?
Actually, my parents. I saw The Exorcist and The Poltergeist when I was like 5.
A little too early.
Yeah,
earlier than most.
in the drive-in theater.
Oh, cool.
And my parents never explained to me what it was about. I didn't know about getting scared, other than I'm afraid of the dark. You
Sure.
know?
Maybe you didn't have siblings.
Right. And I had an older sister too.
Oh, okay. And she didn't scare you?
Well, it will come. But we went to the drive-in, and then all of a sudden, I watched Poltergeist, and I was just tripping out how the girl went into the TV, and I was like, as a little kid, I was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
whoa,
Considering you're usually watching it on a TV at the time. Yeah.
Right, and the clown going underneath the bed, that scared the crap out of me. I slept in my parents' bed for like 2 weeks after that. And then my older sister, now started to babysit me, and she thought, hey, I don't really care for my brother, so I know he's afraid of like horror movies and monsters, so I'm gonna sit him in front of the TV and let him watch all the Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy, or Jason, and all that stuff.
The classics.
And then
In a row?
as long as she can get me to sit in the front, which was all the whole time till my parents got back.
Yeah.
Because she was older than me, she'd beat the crap
Sure,
out of
and
me.
honestly, that makes a pretty easy babysitter, so
Right?
yeah.
And then she would send me back. She'd tell me to go to sleep in the dark by myself. And
Right.
I was terrified of monsters.
And
Since
so that
then.
metastasized into wanting to immortalize them on T-shirts?
It kind
Or
of gave me a feeling of safeness because of the fact, especially with my tattoos,
Oh, wow, I didn't even notice
Because-
those.
I have them on me.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're my friends.
Gotcha. So who are we looking at on your sleeves here?
Like Phantom of the Opera,
For the listener, I mean, I can see.
Freddy Krueger, Exorcist, Reagan, Michael Myers, Leatherface. I have every single horror character you can think of.
That's amazing.
It's
and is this
there.
done by the same Argentinian? Argentinian?
No, this is my buddy from Lefty's Tattoo and based out of Orange.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where can we find you online?
You can go to monstertees.com, or you can find us at monstertees on Instagram.
Okay.
Probably like the best thing. And so I had to make these. I mean, when I said I feel safe, it's just like, hey, if you think of him, hey, Jason ain't gonna come after me if I have his shirt on.
Oh, I see that. It's
You're like,
like,
"Hey, dude,
if I'm on their side.
Yeah, I'm on your side, bro. They're like, don't mess with me.
Oh, it's fascinating. I never thought about it like
So
that. 'cause
that was how I overcame my fear for monsters, and they became my friends
by
in a
identifying with
sense.
them.
Yeah,
I get you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time.
definitely. It was nice meeting you. Thanks.
Gory days. The gory days.
Yeah, and so I try to, blink slowly back and just, communicate. Yeah, the feeling's mutual. Welcome back to the Gory Days. That, of course, was an interview from me at Midsummer Scream talking to a fine gentleman who sells Monster Tease, Tease. I don't really get the pun, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying, because I get that it's supposed to be Monster Tease, but what is the joke with Tease, like teasing?
Oh, I thought it was like a tea that you drink. Wait, tea?
No, it's Monster Tease, like I'm teasing
Oh,
you.
a tea. Okay.
I don't get it,
Yeah.
but he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could tell from the interview. But we are back talking about Clive Barker's Hellraiser from 1987. I'm going to say it right now. I love this movie. It is a great example of why these movies stand the test of time. There are some effect sequences here that look amazing. There are some character designs here that are just so unique and instantly recognizable.
Sure.
We'll get into all of that, but any immediate thoughts right off the bat before I start getting into its historical context and things?
Not so much. I'm not as hyped up about this movie as you are.
Oh no!
What
do you mean?
I thought it was visually very nice. I don't know. We'll get into it as we get into it.
All right. Can't wait to hear all about all that. Hellraiser by Clive Barker was released in September 10th. On September 10th, 1987. I believe that was a Friday. Released in London. This is actually a British horror film.
That explains the accents?
Yes, a lot of the accents, and a lot of it in the late stage of the production was overdubbed to replace a lot of those British accents with American accents.
Interesting.
Most obvious is Frank. All of Frank's lines, played by Sean Chapman, Frank the brother,
Sure.
all of his lines are dubbed entirely by a different American voice actor.
That was hilarious.
Doing all of that. So before I get a little too far into all of that, Clive Barker's Hellraiser is originally based on a short story that he wrote called The Hellbound Heart. That is basic. I read a little bit of it, the first and last chapter. It's essentially the same.
So you pretty much got the whole.
Well, I like it. It's pretty much the same story, but in a way that written word can elicit such a deeper imagery in your head than film. Like film, you're
Sure.
at the mercy of the person whose imagination imagined this. But when you're reading a book, it's your imagination,
Yeah.
and so it's going to be. Yeah. Do you have any experience like?
Sure. When I was reading Harry Potter, I imagined it a lot better. I thought, the movie was good. It was visually, very, very nice, but it was much different from how
Did you read all the books before seeing the movies?
I read up until the fourth one, which I thought was kind of bland.
So were you disappointed when the movies came out and they didn't match your imagination?
A little. I mean, they were still very nice, so I still like the movies, but it wasn't how I imagined Hogwarts to be.
What were some of the biggest, I remember Peeves in the books, completely removed from all of the movies. Was there anything like that you're like, oh,
It's
why
been
isn't
so
Hermione
long,
uglier?
I don't remember much of it. I remember there's Harry Potter sitting with a mirror or something like that would show his parents, something like that, and that was
Yeah.
a huge thing in the books and a quick scene in the movies. And
I do remember that, where it's supposed to show him the Philosopher's Stone, but instead it just shows him his parents, but then his parents show him the Philosopher's Stone or something like that.
Yeah. It's been a while.
I don't remember the book as well. I was not that into reading as a kid, but as I get older, I'm definitely getting into it. I'm currently in the middle of The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King.
Okay.
It's the Gunslinger series, the second one, The Dark Tower, and all that.
I literally just started reading the first one.
Oh, the Gunslinger?
Yeah.
It's great.
I just got 16 pages in, so it's too quick for me to say that.
No worries. So yeah, The Hellbound Heart is the original short story that Clive... Oh,
And if I may, I don't think he uses a lot of how do I say this, flowery or archaic language, Stephen King, at least in this novel. I don't know if that's typical.
I would agree.
Yeah. So I had to look up a lot of things as I'm reading, and it kind of stops the flow.
Oh, that's so funny. I was mentioning that to somebody. I have it on Kindle, and the Kindle is so nice that anytime I come upon a word that I don't know, I can just hold my finger on it, and it looks it up right there. Way better, because you're right. I could imagine, A, not knowing a word and that taking the immersion out of it, and B, having to then go look up the word, and I'm already so far out of it. Yeah. There was a word he used the other day that apparently just means a whiny tone, but it was a 4-syllable word, and I couldn't remember, and I just thought, wow, this, being a linguist or an author or things and getting to... I like words. I like the way they fit together and things like that. So anyway, written by Clive Barker, The Hellbound Heart. This story, it's essentially about the family Cotton. Julia and Larry Cotton are these two married people who have Larry has a daughter. Julia is the stepmother to Kirsty, who are all moving into the Cotton family house together. Larry used to live here when he was a kid. He's going to have Kirsty live here, assuming she doesn't move in with her boyfriend. And Julia is going to stay here too. Little do they know that Larry's brother, Frank, a sex-addicted maniac, was living in the house. And by living, I mean crashing there. There were maggots and everything gross. But essentially, he was using it as a sex dungeon torture place, playing with this evil puzzle box. And once he opens that evil puzzle box, he lets loose these horrible demon monster things, the Cenobites. And in that Hellbound Heart story, he calls them the Cenobites. Pinhead is never mentioned, obviously, and a lot of the Cenobites don't have names, but they're essentially demons of pain and pleasure, angels to some, demons to others.
And that is one of the lines.
And so I'm trying to give just like a general synopsis of the Hellbound Heart to give us an idea of what we're talking about as we get into some of the more trivia and miscellaneous things.
A lot of sadomasochism.
Yes, exactly. But essentially the story in a nutshell is Frank gets taken by the Cenobites. Frank escapes the Cenobites through blood in the place that he died, the attic. And so Julia's job is... so Julia was having an affair with Frank. Julia doesn't love Larry. Julia is is Larry's new wife, but Julia doesn't love Larry. She still is holding flame for the now dead, they assume, in jail or something, Frank. But man, I feel like I got all mixed up here a little bit. I wanted it to be a little tighter. So Larry and Julia are married. Larry has a brother named Frank. They assume Frank has been in jail for the last 10 years. He's actually in hell or purgatory or some terrible place.
Or pleasure zone.
Right. When blood drips in the attic floor, Frank comes back to life as a nasty corpse. Julia, and then Frank tells Julia, "You have to bring more blood here so that I can become a person." That's essentially the movie. That's the story. Yep. I mean, that's the main story without spoiling things. So now, with all of that in mind, I feel like I can get into some of these things. So Clive Barker's books, he was a writer, and his books had been being made into movies before this, but he hated them, and for good reason, specifically completely dismayed at the cinematic adaptations of his work, specifically Rawhide Rex in 1986, which the original story apparently is much more emotional and depicts this deformed man monster thing, Rawhide Rex, as more of like a sympathetic thing. The movie, however, turns him into like a metalhead style, killer monster thing, and just totally takes it in a wrong direction. So Clive Barker decided he's going to attempt to direct this film himself. So when he petitioned, when he went to his friend Christopher Figg, a producer, Christopher Figg got New World Pictures to agree to fund the film for $900,000. Which is a small budget for something like this. But granted that Clive Barker hadn't directed anything, I could understand how they weren't eager to throw all the money they had at him. I don't know. Feel free to chime in at any time if any of these things are interesting.
I did see that it was like a $1 million, $900,000 movie, and it grossed like 14, so hey.
Yeah, 14 million.
Directors.
Yeah, I mean, that's total, worldwide and after videos and things like that, but it's crazy because no one on the production thought that this character of Pinhead or anything was going to take off like it did, least of all Clive Barker. Pinhead was the name given on set. Clive Barker didn't like it, and he thought that it was kind of disrespectful to the character, but it stuck because even in the credits he's credited as lead Cenobite, I think, and in the original Hellbound Heart he's the priest or something like that. But the look of the Cenobite, specifically Pinhead, is just so immediately eye-catching and iconic. Even if you don't know who he is, if you know nothing...
I've definitely seen him before.
That's the thing. Yeah. Is I love having you on here because you do kind of represent the outside looking in on all of this. And so, what's your relationship with Pinhead, the look of the character?
I've definitely seen him somewhere, on a poster or something like that. I was like, oh, this thing. Yeah.
Or maybe whenever there's, a group of horror classic characters, it's like Jason, Freddy, Chucky, Pinhead.
Oh, the nail dude.
Yeah, and you would always go, for me, it was I think he showed up in Looney Tunes or Animaniacs, something where they're showing, they would do that a lot on Animaniacs, is show characters or directors or writers or things that I just didn't get and went right over my head. So I'm pretty sure Pinhead showed up in one of those, and they were doing a silly thing like knocking the nails into his head or something like that. But the reason I say that no one expected this movie to, or expected the this to take off is Clive Barker. I don't know what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to a thing that I didn't write down, and I'm trying to make it sound seamless. But essentially, that it makes me think about the relationship between a production company and the creatives that actually make it. Because Clive Barker's ideas, while have value, he clearly doesn't understand what makes a eye-popping movie. He knows how to craft a good story, but for instance, he was really playing up in the original cut and in the original script the sexual element of it, the relationship between Frank and Julia.
Right.
Just way more scenes of them having sex and longer things. There's a quote that he told in I forgot what the book is, but essentially that the production company made him cut the number of thrusts that Frank shows. And when
whoa, that's too sexual.
Well, exactly that Clive Barker is it was so weird. They said 2 humps is okay, but 3 is obscene, and you're laughing too.
It's the Hollywood 3 pumps.
Well, that's the thing is, I don't know if you did. I remember watching it, and the first time I watched it, I watched it 3 times in between Wednesday or Thursday. So the first time I watched it, I was looking for butt thrusts, and I didn't see any. Because when I read that, I assumed they meant sodomy, but no, it just means it's humps when they're doing it. And yeah, listeners and viewers of this movie, if you go back and watch it, anytime any character humps, it's mostly Frank. It's only Frank. But anytime Frank humps, it's only 2. There's never 3.
Oh, okay, 2. 2's the limit.
It's only 2. It's boom,
Gotcha.
boom, and then they cut to another one or some other thing. Yeah, and it's getting a little weird to talk about, but that's essentially the rule, is that 2 is fine and colors the scene and things, but 3 is obscene and pornographic.
Whoa. Hey, there are kids watching this.
I mean, think about it. Put yourself back into watching the movie and watching those scenes, and think about if there were 3, just one more pushes it over a little bit and makes it just a little more obscene and pornographic.
Yeah, there is something to it. I mean, I know
there's something
making
about
fun
2.
about just the number, but there is something to it.
Especially how painful it looks. That's the thing, is that Frank is a rough, angry lover, and that seems to be why Julia flocks to him.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in a little bit. Really quick, I just wanted to remark on that this movie spawned 9 sequels. The Hellraiser series, I'm sure you've seen, goes on and on and on.
That's what surprised me most when I was looking at Wikipedia before watching it. I was like, oh, there's 9 of these. Clearly, this movie spawned off a whole franchise of films. Did he direct all of them?
No, he only wrote and directed this one. He wrote on the next 3 and then was completely gone by 5.
So he wrote the next 3 but didn't direct them?
No.
Okay.
Correct. They were directed by some other people.
Gotcha.
Whose information I'm sure I could pull up if that were the movies we were talking about. So I realize that I can kind of interject these things as we go through the movie and the recap. Since I've watched this movie so many times recently, I think I have a pretty good idea. Like I said, we're getting better with these recaps here, so help me out along the way. But like we said, essentially, the movie is the family Cotton. Larry is the husband. Julia is the new wife, the newest entry into this family. Kirsty is the daughter. The first scene, though, is really important because it's a deal between... He's in, Morocco or something?
He's in Morocco, according to Wikipedia.
Okay, yeah.
And he's...
What's your pleasure, sir?
Yeah, it's...
He's, vaguely Asian kind of sounding. It sounds
Morocco,
offensive. Yeah. And then Frank puts some money down, and his nails are so nasty.
I did
There's
not
so
pay
much
attention to that.
dirt under there,
Yeah.
and, it was something I realized right away is less is more in horror. Right away, I was uncomfortable with whoever owns those nails, and seriously,
That's the villain.
That was something. Yeah, kind of, because he puts the money down, he takes the box, and he goes home to his altar where he's trying to solve the box. And the way that you solve the box is so weird.
Kind of spin it like an iPod.
Yeah, you kind of have to gingerly rub your finger on the top, and that makes it erect,
yeah.
and then you push it back down. I was kind of thinking about that it's kind of a sexual thing where you have to caress the nubbit of the box to make a thing extend, and then you force it back down, this kind of in and out thing. And that's kind of one of the themes of this movie big time is sexual imagery. But when he solves the box, the worst thing possible happens.
Or the best thing.
Or the best thing. I don't know what he was looking forward to. They set up a few times that, like, oh, he's such a sexual deviant that nothing gets him off anymore. And, like, he's probably resorted to all kinds of things. But I never really feel like he's like that. He doesn't look like he's tortured. He looks healthy.
Yeah, he doesn't have any, like, piercings or tattoos or anything you would kind of associate with
yeah, you would assume he had like obscene piercings in places you wouldn't expect, and all kinds of weird stuff. Like, I don't even go to sadomasochist clubs, and I have a better idea of what someone who frequents those would look like. They'd look closer to Pinhead and things. But is he naked in that beginning scene? I guess that would...
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Anyway, he solves the puzzle, and the worst or best possible thing happens. Hooks, chains come out of nowhere and rip him
his flesh apart.
Rip him apart. And then they're like trying to put his face back together. And originally, Clive Barker filmed that scene with actual pig eyes and a tongue and wanted it to look more like that, but the production company and the censor said no. So there was a lot of like post-production filming of extra inserts and scenes and stuff that they had to do, and that was one of them, where they assemble the face and take them away. Then Pinhead fixes the box, and they're all gone.
The room goes back to normal.
Totally normal. That's when we meet Julia and Larry. They're walking in, and we learn that Larry used to live here a long time ago, hasn't been here in 10 years, wanted to sell it when his mom passed away, but he couldn't convince Frank for some reason. They assume Frank has been in jail this whole time, but he's been squatting in the house. And like we said, turning into this nasty sex dungeon. Maggots everywhere, cockroaches. That was some other interesting trivia that I learned is when you have cockroaches on a film set, they all have to be male.
Interesting. So they don't breathe?
Exactly. To avoid infestation.
Gotcha.
So when you get a cockroach wrangler on set, they have to sex each cockroach to make sure that they're male.
Gotcha.
And they were too fast. The cockroaches, you've seen cockroaches. They're like, they can clear a kitchen. I don't know. Have you seen cockroaches?
I've seen cockroaches.
Yeah. They can clear distances. So they had to freeze them to get them slow and docile enough to be as slow as you see them in the movie. Maggots, too. They had to, cool them down so that they squirmed right and looked on there. And so they had to have a maggot wrangler, a cockroach wrangler, and a rat wrangler. There's rats in the movie, too.
There's also crickets.
Oh, that's right. There's crickets at one point. Yeah. I don't know if you need a cricket wrangler. I don't know if that's a thing. Probably. Let's see, where was I? Oh, so Larry and them show up. Julia meanders her way up and finds Frank's old photos and finds a photo that she likes of him not actively having sex, and keeps that.
And she rips the other woman's.
She rips the other one. Yeah. Now, this is when Kirsty enters the movie. They're moving in to the new house, and they've got movers there, and Larry calls her, and we just get this like close-up shot of Kirsty in a nondescript location. We have no idea where she is, but there's something she has to do before she comes over, and that thing apparently was to just walk along the like shipping yard. Like, what is she doing? Do you remember that?
Not really. I remember her being in a booth or something.
Well, there's music playing, and she's walking along like the harbor, and she's looking up, and then you see her cross by a house, and you're thinking to yourself like, oh, this is the thing she had to do, and then she looks at some like Jesus things outside and laughs at them and gives them a weird look. Enters the door, and it's the house that they're actively moving in. Like, we just cut from the movers with the giant bed trying to get it up the stairs to Kirsty walking around.
Yeah, this is something I had to do. It was look at the house.
It was so weird. It makes me think that it's like a different day and she's in a different place, but then it's like minutes. It's minutes from when they were talking. Yeah, so that was very confusing. And then as soon as Kirsty shows up, the movers have to, is that your daughter? She's got her mother's looks. Her mother's dead. He just loves bringing that up anytime someone tries to hit on her. Let's see, what were some fun things? So, when they're trying to get the bed moved up, it's so great. Julia's upstairs fondly remembering Frank, and...
is that when we see the flashback to this is like right before Julia and Larry's marriage.
It was like the wedding day. It seemed
day.
like, yeah.
And Frank comes in. It's raining. Can I come in?
That's something I want to talk about. Frank is not that hot. He's 80s British hot, like by those standards. But and then something else, like I said, this movie is originally British, and there are a lot of things that are just like painstakingly, obviously British in this movie. The fridge. Do you remember how tiny?
No, I didn't take a look at the fridge.
Yeah, the refrigerator is so tiny in the back. All the doors and things have stained glass, like on the inside and stuff. Yeah. What do you got? You got anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's definitely like an 80s like model, is how I would describe him, or like 80s.
Well, it's like where I'm coming from is I think Clive Barker thought he was hot, and that's why he casted him. Like I just kept thinking like he kind of looks like I'd imagine Clive Barker's tastes, and so I have to imagine that played some bit into it.
Okay.
Maybe that's what I speculated on. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. Let's see. So Julia is upstairs, fondly remembering Frank, remembering that night or I guess that wedding day when they had rough super sex, and she devoted herself to him when she said, "I'll do anything for you." And I guess they continued a relationship, but he was like, "It's never enough." And that was probably the last time they saw each other, I think. And that's when Larry cuts his hand on a nail in a really great, cringe moment. I don't want to look. Less is more kind of thing, where they're pushing the bed and the nail grinds against his hand, and man, it starts bleeding a lot. And it's like that movie, like really goopy, like jam.
Yeah. It was a little like it. If that were to happen, it'd be like, hey, stop.
Seriously. It's really deep.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
They pushed it a while after, he's like, this hurts, keep going.
Yeah, and he keeps going up the stairs, too, and he's like, oh, look at it. You know how I am with blood. I'm about to faint. But, so they go out, and they take him to the hospital, because he has to get stitches. But all of that blood had seeped into the floor in the attic.
And by the way, I really like that visual effect of the blood disappearing.
I was wondering, that looks really cool. How'd they do that?
I don't know.
I realized how, because once the blood seeps in and you see Frank's new heart beating and things, and they leave, the floors start to shake and things, and goo starts to bubble up from the floor. So that's what made me think, they bubbled blood up and then just filmed it and then just reversed it, because it looks really good, because I was like, there's no stains, it's just gone. So this is the scene I'm talking about. This is the thing that horror movies, they just stand the test of time. Christopher Young did the music for this movie, and it's an amazing score. The floor bubbles up into this nasty mush of bile and things, and you see a reverse pear. It looks like a fruit decaying in time lapse that they reverse to make it look like it's forming. So cool, man.
Yeah, it looked great.
A brain forming, and then the two arms come
the
out.
arms, it's just super slender, and
and it's just meat and bones and sinew, and it's wet every 80s horror thing, but it's purposefully wet because it's forming from this nasty thing, and then it lunges forward to connect its spine to the brainstem. Oh my god, I love that scene.
Amazing.
So Christopher Young, as I mentioned, did the music, and Clive Barker, having never directed a movie, really wanted Coil, a band, European electronic band, to do the music. Is that?
No, that's Star Wars Cantina.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I didn't. I thought maybe you recognized them, but yeah, it's a band called Coil. He originally wanted them to perform the music for the film, but the production company said, no. Get Christopher Young. He just did the music for A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, and Invaders from Mars, so get him on it. And I think it was a really good idea, but apparently Coyle had written a lot of the themes already for the movie, so Christopher Young used them, including this one apparently was a Coyle theme that he used for this scene. Oh, God, it's so cool. I love that. What did you think of that scene?
Yeah.
Did you not care?
No, I liked it. I was still very much intrigued. I was like, I liked the visual effects of the blood disappearing and just what I thought at the time was like this demon. Well, I didn't quite think at the time because I had read the plot, so I knew it was Frank. But I let myself pretend it was a demon or something.
Yeah, because we don't find out that it's Frank until, I mean, like, you could assume, but Julia comes back. They come back, and they're having dinner. And this is great because this character, Evelyn, is at dinner with another character named Bill and a dinner guest who doesn't get a name. But there are incidental gays in this scene. When are you like you didn't notice?
I didn't. No,
really?
I didn't pick that up now.
There's there's two guys, and they're like, they're dressed a little bit nicer, and but that's what I love is they're incidental because it really doesn't matter that they're gay. And this was back in the 80s, but I feel like it's Clive Barker once again, just trying to push the envelope a little bit with things like that. So they're having a party, and Julia has to leave because she says, "Oh, I'm not feeling too well." But this is also the scene where Kirsty meets her boyfriend, or maybe is that where they meet?
Yeah.
Were they already dating?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they're flirting.
Because he does that cigarette trick that's super gross and weird. I don't get what's supposed to be hot about that.
So he takes he has just a tiny bit over a cigarette butt, and he flips it into his mouth and back out. It's disgusting.
And then smokes it again, it was still hot in his mouth, and he managed to get it back out. And Kirsty giggles, ooh, that's kind of cute. Hot. I've never seen that. I don't know. I would immediately go ugh, at somebody if they did that. But so Julia is like, oh, I gotta go, and one of the gay guys, Bill, who's apparently an attorney, which is also really nice, is like, oh, we should go too. And Larry's like, no, you can't go. This is the night of the paper hat. We're celebrating
the what?
Something. I don't know if that's a reference to the story he was just telling that I didn't. We just get the tail end of, or if it's. I don't know what that was, but I thought it was funny enough that it's the party of the paper, the night of the paper hat. Made me think if this movie has a similar cult following Rocky Horror Picture Show or things, that the night of the paper hat would be a big in reference for people who love this movie. But anyway, that's what gets Julia out of the dinner room and upstairs where she meets Frank, and he is goopy and gross. Don't look at me. I love how often Frank says, don't look at me, but then at the end, he's like, I can't go out there. Look at me. So it's first you're all, don't look at me. Now you're looking at me, man. I can't figure you out. But, that's where Julia realizes, Frank explains, I need more blood to become human. And I just thought...
And he's kind of unsure about it at first. It's oh, look what that bit of blood did. Maybe
that's what I was saying. Is he gets really far with just hand blood, and then he needs an entire body to get what looks like just the next step.
Yep.
It's really unclear, and I hate this when they do this in movies. But yeah, I don't know what it takes to reconstitute.
Well, of course, by demon logic, it's the first few bits gets you a skeleton body, and then after that you get the shiny flesh and stuff.
What are you basing that on?
I don't know, just the movie.
That's really funny. That sounds like something I would say. Nice co-hosting.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's see.
I'll be here next week.
Let's see. After she goes up, she agrees, all right, I'll do this for you. And then when she's leaving that, she starts eyeing Kirsty. And you can tell in that moment she's thinking, well, I should take Kirsty out right now. That would make this really easy. And Kirsty's like, hey, I'm here. Because they don't have a great relationship at all. Kirsty, hates Julia.
And it's clear, in the previous scene, I think, is where Larry says, hey, you should be nice to her and something like that. You should make peace with her. Sort of thing, so.
Because, I don't know, my parents are married, so I've never had to deal with that, but I feel like it's a pretty, what's the word I'm looking for, relatable thing for people who have step-parents or live in that kind of relationship, of that, it could be for years of, well, you're the replacement, or you're, I don't really know you, and it makes me, I don't think anyone in the family knows that she and Frank were a thing, because that would make it so much worse for Kirsty. I don't think Kirsty would talk to her at all. So, yeah, they're really Julia's already weird before Frank and all this nonsense started showing up. She was standoffish. She clearly didn't love Larry.
She's let's marry him.
How long have they been married? Is it 10 years? Is the idea that since Frank has been gone?
Yeah,
from that
I mean,
wedding?
It has to be, yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah, 10 years of absolute
least,
loveless. Yeah. So yeah, Kirsty tries to open up, but Julia's eyeing her and thinking, well, I should take you out, but decides against it. And is that when Kirsty goes back to her place and has her dream?
Yeah. Yeah. So she has a dream.
I love this dream sequence.
Yeah. So she has this dream where her dad's flesh is getting torn off or something like that. I forgot exactly what it is.
Oh, it's beautiful. So she's in a room and there's just feathers all over the place and there's fluttering.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And I remember just being like, so like,
and there's,
what
like,
is happening?
Baby crying.
And there's a baby crying.
Yeah.
And that sound of the baby crying is so piercing and so creepy as there's like a slab, like a dais in front of her.
It looks like there's a body, like an adult body
under a sheet. And then
slowly seeps blood
on over the sheets and stuff until Kirsty reaches for the sheets and pulls them back, and it's her dad, and he's like all cut up, and she wakes up. Well, no, she doesn't. The boyfriend wakes up, which I thought was a great bait and switch because I was like, oh, what was it, his dream? And no, she's still dreaming. She's freaking out. So the boyfriend wakes her up, and she's like, oh, it's just a bad dream. So then she calls her dad to tell her, hey, I had a weird dream about you.
Are you okay?
Oh my god, yeah. Like, is that a thing? Do people do that?
They do in this movie.
I don't know.
And so he wakes up and goes all the way downstairs where the phone is.
Yeah. He goes all the way downstairs to answer the phone just to tell her, no, it's fine. I'm fine. And then tells Julia she had a bad dream. So then where does Larry go during the day? Does he have a job?
I assume so.
We never learned what he does.
We don't know, but he's away.
Because it gives Julia plenty of time during the day to go out in full 80s like power suit and like huge hairsprayed hair and massive eyeshadowness to this bar and like a hotel. And why doesn't she just get hobos? We even see like a transient, and I kept thinking like, oh, she's gonna get him at some point, but no, she goes to like an upscale rich bar where there's people who would probably actively be missed like later that day, and she picks up this guy.
And she does so very passively, like she doesn't.
Like it wasn't even her plan. He does most of the work.
Right. Oh, she's like. Was that like a convenience thing?
Seriously. Even like after she gets him all the way to the house, he's still the one going like, well, isn't this why you brought me here?
It's like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so she convinces this victim to go all the way up to the top, and then he starts to undress because, well, she's hot. So if she wants to do it in a disgusting, musty attic on the floor, then hey, I'm game. I love how obviously British his accent is too. And so funny thing, that actor originally insisted that he be naked for that scene because he was like, actors can be, he'll go over and he'll go, I think it'd be more honest to my character if I was completely nude.
Wow.
Because, it's sexy time. And so apparently they did it. They filmed it nude, and then we're like, okay, so we did that. Can you do a semi-nude version? And they're like, okay. So they went with the semi-nude version.
Sure.
You see in the movie where he just has this briefs. Yeah. But oh my god, man, she hits him in the head with a hammer on the back of the head, and then the front of his jaw like breaks his jaw, and he's like, please no, and then one more blow to the head and he is down. And then Frank comes crawling over and he goes, don't look at me. She goes into the bathroom, and another amazing scene of the actress's name is Claire Higgins, who plays Julia Cotton, and she just stares into the mirror as she like struggles to hold on to her sanity and like lets a little smile creep onto her face before wiping all the blood off. And then Larry gets home and she has to carry the body from one room to the other, like totally quiet. And in that moment I was like,
well, the other thing is the attention to detail is when we see that room again, when she walks back into the room where Frank just, I don't know, suck the blood out of.
Right.
You see, like he has the same facial expression as he did when he was hitting the hammer. So you see, like, oh, that was a good attention to detail.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a good point. Is that she goes back in there to find the body like drained, and he's got that look of just like that agape mouth and all the blood pouring out of it. Now Frank is much more formed. He looks way less like a puppet, with a makeup on a man and then most of it's puppet. Now he's a full person in makeup and things. I forgot his name. He plays Frank the Monster, Oliver Smith. So Frank is played by two people because the original voice actor Frank, had to be overdubbed, and then Frank the Monster is Oliver Smith.
It's really odd that they dub English over English. It's not like it's a spaghetti western or something.
No, yeah, but it's like they... honestly, I kept thinking about it that if I believe this was taking place in Britain as an American, it's like this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is just some fairy tale.
There,
yeah. But it's like once you put this in America, for me, there's now so many preconceptions that get erased or set up that now I'm in it, and it's like, well, this could be happening. This is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and it looked like England too.
It really did.
So
a lot of it really looked like England. Let's see, where were we? So she has to move the body from point A to point B, and we finally find out where. And then Kirsty goes on a date.
Where does she take the body? It's never clear.
Well, we see it later. I thought the same thing. I was like, where is she putting these bodies? What is she doing with them? How is she disposing of them? But apparently she's just putting them in the wardrobe because Kirsty's hiding it later, and one of the guys leans forward and maggots come pouring out of his mouth onto her, and she doesn't make a peep, which I was like, holy crap, good for her. At one point, Kirsty and her boyfriend Steve go for a walk, and it's the first time that we see the transient, or the hobo, played by, I think his name was Frank Baker? Yeah, Frank Baker, the derelict. He's the hobo that keeps following her. The first time we see him is looking out of like a shipping container, and every time we see him, we hear this sound effect of like fluttering, like flapping of wings and birds, like a lot of birds or something like that. Anyway, they share a kiss. There was it's just a scene to set up that the derelict is in the movie.
I think we also see him before that when she's working at a...
That's after. That's number two.
Just kidding. Yeah. That was a joke.
But, eventually we do see that Kirsty works at a pet store, and she's terrible.
Yeah.
And they have monkeys there. Like, what kind of pet store is this?
It's wild.
There's the kid, like, banging on the glass, and there's this woman who's, like, demanding to see the manager, and she's like, I'm sorry, he's not here. But then the derelict is in the back, or he just walks in, makes eye contact with her, and then goes back. So she follows him, and he sees that he's eating crickets. Really gross. And just like not, and says no words. It's like, what are you gonna do about it? And she just like shoos him out, like, get out of here. And he leaves, and once again with that like fluttering noise, he just kind of disappears because Steve shows up and taps her on the shoulder, and she goes, ah! In one of those fake scares that we all love. Let's see. Oh, and that's when Julia gets another victim. She goes back out, and she's wearing like yellow this time. I don't know. She looks, or was that the first? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. She gets a second victim.
And this time she's a pro. She doesn't even blink.
Doesn't even blink. Yeah. Beats him on the head, and then goes and sits down in full David Bowie gear, and just thinks and like smiles to herself. I love that long pan of her just like lavishing. In that this isn't a typical horror slasher of the 80s, in that there's just someone wantonly killing the sexiest people running around for no reason, like Slumber Party Massacre, or even Friday the 13th. This is Julia is killing for love. It's like a lustful love, but it's love, and so she's doing this because she, in her own way, this is her pleasure pain to get that roughness that Frank could give her, that her husband, the brother Larry, never could. He's really a worm. So in fact, they're watching boxing together later, and Larry is really into it, but Frank is upstairs having like a temper tantrum, banging on banisters and things. Larry hears it, and Julia goes into full, like, oh, I love you, you're so sexy, oh, pay attention to me mode. And Larry's, like, kind of buying it.
I love a little bit before that, they're watching boxing, and it seems like she was never into boxing, but now that she's killed, she's like, oh, she's like smiles as it's watching, and he's like, oh, I know you don't like to watch this, maybe let's watch something else.
Yeah, he's like, would you mind if I change? She's like, no. Or he says, are you okay? She's like, I'm fine. Yeah. And that's a good point. I didn't notice that. Yeah, that she's into violence and into that whole world. So she kind of convinces Larry not to go all the way up into the attic, but instead into this little side room where they start making sexy time, and she's like, oh, I love you so much. But this scene is so weird. Frank comes out of the closet. He snuck down from the attic to this extra room and is in the closet, creeping closer and closer with the same switchblade that he used to cut her like bra strap on the night of the wedding day. And it's like his, calling card, the switchblade. And Julia is on her back, Larry's on her, so Larry doesn't see any of this as Julia is saying, no, stop, I can't bear it. Larry doesn't stop. Larry has to assume that she's saying it about him and what he's
Maybe
doing.
That's just
what did you think about that?
I don't know. That was odd. I mean, I felt like maybe it was like she was imagining it or something like that. Like it didn't really happen until...
But Larry should stop. If you're... Okay, like this isn't a sexist thing,
like
but...
Maybe she was imagining screaming is what I thought.
Oh, you think she wasn't actually saying, no, I can't bear it.
That's what I thought was happening, because it was like clear...
Okay, that's
like,
great. That's the mental gymnastics you had to go through to explain why Larry is being a terrible husband right now.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a man, a woman, whatever. If you are making out and being loving on a person who is saying out loud, no, stop, I can't bear it, you stop. Like, don't let them get to, I can't bear it. You should stop at the first no. And God, yeah. So finally, after Frank gets all the way to the bed, like, cuts open a rat just to show her.
Like, this is what I could have done.
This is what I could have done. This is what I'm capable of. Folds the rat back up, slinks back to the closet, closes the door before Larry stops.
Do we see that? Do we see him slinking
I
back?
guess he doesn't. Yeah,
we don't see it.
He just vanishes.
Which is why, like, when he comes back, I was like, oh, did she imagine it? That's why I was like, I wasn't clear.
I interpreted it as it was all real.
Because like,
he doesn't have supernatural powers. We never set that up beyond straw fingers. Yeah. But that's the only thing we ever see.
Because like, how does he not notice some guy slinking back?
I feel like you can feel another person's energy, like when they're in a room when it's that small and you're making out. But then Larry's like, I just don't understand you. Yeah. 1 second you're all over me, and the next, I just don't understand you. And then leaves. Let's see. Is that when... That's when he goes to a Chinese restaurant and sits down with Kirsty, and they have a real heart-to-heart about... Kirsty's like, you love her, so there must be something worth loving. And he's like, I wish it was that simple. I'm in real trouble here, kid. And like, I really felt for him. This is something that Clive Barker really pushed for having actual good actors in this movie when the popular thing at the time was to cast nobodies because they're going to die anyway. Sure. But Clive Barker has a friend, Andrew Robinson, who's a stage actor in London, be in this movie as Larry to really get that across. In fact, the production company wanted to cast stuntmen as the Cenobites because they said, well, they don't say anything. They're just standing there. And Clive Barker said, no. Even if they don't say anything, their body language will portray character. And I would say so. Like the fat one and the chatterer, they don't say anything. But
but there's definitely, you can see their character just by the way they move.
Yeah. And so Clive Barker, like, good for him pushing on that, especially when you're a first-time director. I could imagine just wanting to go, okay, I'll do what you want. But, he'd been doing that with his other books. So I'm sure at this point he's like, no, I'm going to do it my way as much as I can with as little butt thrust as possible. The magic
to
number.
trust.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed, but the sound in the Chinese restaurant is pretty crappy, and it's really rushed. They have literally like two angles. There's just like the one camera setup for Larry and for Julia, and it just cuts back and forth to those. There's no other really there's the establishing shot, but that's it. The reason is that apparently that night, the location person to let the crew and cast and everyone into the Chinese restaurant was extremely late. So they had to film that scene on a super truncated schedule, and that's why it seems so rushed. They
didn't have time to set up the whole thing. Gotcha. Yeah. I didn't really notice it. I did, now that you mentioned it, it was like two shots going back and forth between them.
And it just ends abruptly too, because he says, maybe you could talk to her, come by, and maybe she just needs someone to talk to.
Maybe she needs a friend.
Yeah, maybe she just needs a friend. Yeah. And then it cuts to Frank at the stairs saying, "You can't love him," and she's like, "I don't." Then what's the problem? Then what's It's like, I won't kill him. I'll kill anyone else. Ask anyone else. So she does. One last time, she decides to go out and get a John guy, but this time, Kirsty sees. She's like across the street or whatever, or like they live in like a forest or something. That house is like in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, she's over on the grassy knoll and sees Julia bring in this other guy.
So she thinks, oh, she's having an affair.
Which is totally reasonable. Yeah. It explains so much. It's like, oh, she's having an affair. So this guy, the third victim, is the most pathetic one of all of them. He's in the house. He's with the woman. He's ready to go. And as they're going up to what he can only assume is her bedroom, he stops her and goes, I get lonely sometimes. Yeah. Just like offers that up.
Worst time to bring that up.
Like, dude, you did the work. You don't have to do that anymore.
Oh, man. Well, maybe bring it up after? I don't know. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, that would have stopped.
I know, super funny. And then he almost lives, too.
Yeah.
They get all the way up to the attic, and the first blow to the head, he, like, survives and manages to grab Julia. And so there's a scuffle that Kirsty now hears up there, and so she's creeping her way up to the attic when Frank comes from behind and starts straw fingering him. But the guy's still alive and conscious, so he begs Julia, please don't let him kill me, and she leaves. And I thought that's a great moment, because up until now, the two others she killed before Frank got to him. So now we see that he does it whether you're alive or not. Because when Kirsty gets to the top of the stairs, the victim comes out of the doorway, and he's like all like, he doesn't look like what I expect him to. I thought he would be like shriveled and weak, but he's more like melty and gooey and things. Gooey. I don't know. Yeah, what?
It's kind of like Frank.
How would you describe it?
Yeah, gooey. Gooey is a good description. The other thing,
Thank you.
The other thing I noticed, like, he kind of could have fought back more. I don't know if it was disabled or something.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe the blow to the head. God, those hammer head hits really get me, man. That seems like the worst way. Because it's not like in the movies. This is a movie, but it's like in the movies, it's like one blow to the head and you're knocked out. This was way more realistic, and like they take a blow to the head and they're still up, and it's just, oh my God, just intense pain and brain damage probably.
Yeah. Although, from what I understand, it doesn't hurt as much to get hit in the head because you don't have as many like pain receptors there.
Oh, really?
So it wouldn't hurt that bad, but you'd probably, wouldn't be mentally capable of moving all your limbs or something like that. Maybe that's part of it.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, let's find out.
Yeah. So Kirsty now knows that something is up there eating people, and it's Frank. Frank pops out and says, like, hello, it's me. Come to daddy. Kirsty, come to daddy. And I forget how the box, is it just sitting in there? She picks it up.
Yeah,
because he had it earlier and was explaining to Julia what happened to him, and explained that that's where he sets up that, nothing was getting me off anymore. And so I found this puzzle, and these monsters came out, and they tore me apart, and they took me to this terrible place. And Julia can, like, barely take it.
Yeah.
So Kirsty...
Like, pain and pleasure indescribable, or, like, can't be discerned.
Go ahead and talk right into that metal thing there. Yeah. No worries. You want to go a little closer, maybe?
Yep.
What were we saying?
He was, like, saying pleasure and pain is indiscernible. So... that's
totally, it's one of the themes.
Yeah.
And we'll save that for the end. But Kirsty picks up the box, and Frank immediately overplays his hand. Yeah, he's like, no, give that to me. And Kirsty's pretty smart. She goes, you want this? You want this? He's like, give it to me. And she throws it out the window, and Frank just screams, because I guess he can't leave the house.
Because people will see him.
That's it. Yeah. So she runs out. She grabs the box, which gives off like an electric charge when she touches it.
Which was very like 80s graphic.
Oh my God. So yeah, the visual effects in this movie, apparently they ran out of money by the time the movie was made. And Clive Barker himself and, quote, a Greek guy, unquote, edited the film together over a weekend, and Clive Barker said, I'm amazed it looks as good as it does, considering how much alcohol we drank that weekend. And it doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look as bad as I would expect from a situation like that.
What was it, like hand drawn afterwards?
Yes, literally. Visual effects back then, before CGI and all of that, was literally hand drawn on each frame. Is how they would do visual effects. So very, very different time. Probably no less time consuming. I don't know. Maybe definitely more. Than the way they do it now. So this is great. We get a location change. Kirsty is running around town trying to get away from his influence, I guess, because he's still calling out to her. It's some connection by touching the box that doesn't happen to other characters, and we'll get to this in a second, but she collapses either from emotional stress or running too long or the effect of the cube. It's unclear, but she collapses and 3 Samaritans come out of nowhere, crowd the lens, the frame, and go, "Are you okay?" And then she wakes up in a hospital, a brand new location, where a creepy nurse is sitting at the foot of the bed watching a TV show of flowers blooming. Like it's the flowers blooming show on Nat Geo.
Hang on. I think I've seen this one before.
Hey kids, gather around! You're gonna be late. It's the new episode.
This week on flower blossoming turnips.
And my boyfriend was watching at the time, and he remarked that the flower on the TV show was a carnation, and he was like, "Oh, why are they watching that? A carnation, the daisy of flowers." I thought that was hilarious. So she wakes up, the doctor comes in, and she's like, "I want to call my dad." And the doctor's like, "First things first, get into bed. We'll call your dad, but get into bed. Oh, and also, do you know what this is?" And he pulls out the puzzle box. It has no effect on him, because he's just like, "Well, you were holding on to it when we found you. Maybe it'll jog your memory." And they leave, they lock her in, and she just starts playing with the box.
The other thing is she says, like, "Oh, you'll have to explain this to the cops," or something like that.
Oh, that's right,
like,
yeah.
What?
Is
Was she criminally charged with anything?
Well,
they suspect?
I think technically when you're admitted as like a Jane Doe, that they have to bring the police in to help, ask questions and get your identity. But no, she's not a Jane Doe because her boyfriend finds her later.
Right.
Steve shows up and is like, "Oh, well, she's not there, but yeah, he knows where the room is."
Yeah, so then she
starts playing with the box, and amazingly enough, like, kind of figures out how to do with it, but it gives her a shock, and it starts to, like, solve itself, and it fits itself wrong. It, like, it's not a cube anymore. It's now this weird shape.
It's like a star or something.
And that's when the walls, like, open up, and now there's this long hallway where there was walls before. And she goes in, and she goes down this long hallway full of smoke and things. And I remember, that's a really suspenseful scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's, like, getting closer and closer to the threshold of this
chamber,
chamber, whatever it is. And she goes through it, and she keeps going deeper and deeper. And that's when this monster shows up. And this monster, like,
so I looked up the name. It's called the Engineer.
It's the Engineer,
which, as an engineer myself, I find very, very offensive. This is not very representative of who we are.
I don't. It's an example of just like over designed. It's just got too much going on. The bottom part of it, it's supposed to be like vaguely phallic in that the top part of it, is like a long elongated thing, but also the head is an extended long part of it on the bottom. So I feel like it's supposed to be phallic in that way. But the way it moves, it doesn't look like it makes sense.
Yeah.
It somehow supports itself by its 2 upper arms, while its lower ones can just reach out. And I guess it must be like have some really strong muscles.
Yeah, I guess it's like pushing the walls as like Jean-Claude Van Damme.
See, if I can't even explain, like if it looks like it should be falling over, then I can't be scared of it at the same time. That being said, the speed and insistency that it's like chomping at her ankles gets me back there again, and it's like, oh my god, it's like right there. And they do such a good job with like the mashing of the teeth that makes it really seem, I feel like it's a really good trick of don't show the thing for too long, just get really quick, like, chompings or things like that.
Yeah, and it was still really dark in that room, and you can only see like his face for a little bit, and then like his upper body or whatever for a little bit. And it was great. You don't have to show more than that.
That's the thing. It's the shot. It's the long shot of its entire body that kills it for me. Like I would like it if I couldn't figure out its physiology exactly. But anyway, it chases her all the way down that hallway, and she gets out. And when she turns around, the doorway's gone. But it's like right behind the wall. Yeah. Oh, I love that moment too. She barely made it, and it's still there. And if she doesn't solve the box again, then it could still break through. And somehow she figures out that you have to like
Pop it, twist it.
She figures it out and closes it down. And she doesn't. She tries to, and the Cenobites show up in the hospital room, and they tell her, like, all right, here we go. This is how it works.
Summoned us.
You solve it, you summon us, and then we take you away. And she manages to say, like, no, you guys have done this before, right? And he's like, many times. Apparently, Doug Bradley, the actor who played the lead Cenobite, Pinhead, he has those black contacts on. He couldn't see through them. He was completely blind, and there were a few moments where, like, he bumped into things or, like, missed his mark because he was afraid of walking too far. 100% blind. While he's delivering those iconic lines. Angels to some, demons to others. This is like the longest time Pinhead talks in the movie. Otherwise, they're just like, we will tear your soul apart. So she convinces them, you've done this with Frank, a man named Frank Cotton. And he's like, he escaped you. And Pinhead's like, no one has ever escaped us. And he's like, he did. I know where he is. And then Pinhead's like, suggesting someone had escaped us.
Let's just say for instance.
It's so funny. It's like he's a PR guy, and he's like, no, that never happened. And then he just got word like, what? They did escape?
Let's pretend. Right. Okay.
Assuming he had escaped. Let's just hypothetically, what are you offering?
What do you got?
Yeah. And she's like, I'll give you him for me. And the female one's like, suppose we like you more. But Pinhead trumps her and is like, I want to hear it from him. So I guess they teleport there because the nurse doesn't know where she is. It was locked. Steve goes in and he's like, where is she? Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah, so I guess they like teleported away. That's when, basically, long story short, Larry came home. Frank it's obvious, so I'm not gonna, beat around the bush. Frank is now wearing Larry's skin. He's like making sure it's pushed back, but now that he has a physical body and a penis, he's able to have sex with Julia, and Julia is finally getting everything she wants. Kirsty comes home and is like, Dad!
No, which actor is now playing Frank?
Yeah. Andrew Robinson, Larry.
Is that Larry?
So
okay,
it's actually like Andrew Robinson does a great job in this movie because he has to play Frank possessing him, like in his skin, which
he does an incredible job.
He does a great job. There's not a moment when he is Frank that I'm like, that's a different person.
Yeah.
That's a different dude wearing his skin.
Right.
And just from an acting perspective,
incredible,
does a great job. Convinces his own daughter that it's like, no, you don't understand. Frank's alive. He's up in the attic, and we have to get out of here. And he's like, no, what Frank did was unspeakable. So we
had to kill him.
We killed him. Yeah. He was a mad dog. We had to put him out of his misery. She's like, what? I just made a deal with some demons to exchange them. That's not good for me.
Dad, I got into some stuff.
And let's see. Then eventually it comes out. She goes up and she sees skinned body,
which she still thinks is Frank.
She thinks is Frank. So the Cenobites are up there and they say, "We want who did this," and it's pretty good, just like script wise. The like dramatic irony of what we know versus what she believes. She goes, "No, he's my father, and you can't have him," because she thinks they skinned him.
Right.
That he never had skin. That was dead Frank.
That was Frank, clever. And then they want her dad.
Now they want the person who killed Frank. Their kill that they wanted.
Now, do they know? I assume that they know.
The Cenobites do know.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's they're like cryptic
way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's not give this away to her.
So now Kirsty goes back downstairs to tell Frank, but Frank lays it all. I mean Larry, but Larry lays it all out by saying, "Come to Daddy. Stay here. You can be happy with us." And she puts it together like, "Oh my God, this is Frank." Julia grabs Kirsty. Frank pulls out his switchblade that he's about to stab Kirsty with, and Kirsty spins out of there.
Last second.
Larry stabs Julia, and Julia screams in this beautifully realistic, just like, oh my God, everything I've done was for nothing. Not me! As she gets stabbed, and then Frank wastes no time in sucking her dry and saying, nothing personal, baby. What a monster.
Oh, yeah.
What a just, like... the worst person in this movie.
Yep.
Worse than the Cenobites, worse than everything.
Yeah.
Just he forced her to shed off her humanity for what she believed was his honest love. And the moment that she's dying, he descends and is like just drinks her dry. So now the only living people is Frank wearing Larry's skin and Kirsty. So we shift to a cat and mouse where they cut all the music out and she's just creeping around the house. And so she goes into that room that we saw Julia carry the body into, and we can only assume the other two are in there. And so Kirsty hides inside a wardrobe like you do in horror movies. And one of the bodies like leans forward and just empties maggots all over her. And that's, I remember writing down on the first viewing early on, where does she do the bodies? What is she doing with them? She was just putting them in the wardrobe because she assumed we're never going to unpack this room. And he just vomits all of these maggots onto her, and good for her. She doesn't make a peep. She doesn't make a sound. I would have screamed. So then
she also has like a lot of like presence of mind while she's being like almost taken to this demon world to offer up Frank.
Considering she just saw something that should have destroyed her mind of like, oh, there's other dimensions and crap. She keeps her head on a swivel. She knows what's up.
Hey, I can get you someone.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she hates Frank so much right away. She's like, oh, no, I know a better one. This is a great, how she gets caught. She goes out to the banister and it just all starts hitting her all at once. That it's like, my dad's dead. My whole life is falling apart, and she starts to cry and she starts to like convulse a little bit, and that's how Frank hears her, comes over to her, and they manage to get their way back into the attic. And Frank has his knife and he's about to get her, and the walls start smoking and lighting up, and Frank is like, what is this? Like, he's never seen the Cenobites before.
He's like, oh.
What could this be?
Didn't he spend like 10 years in this dungeon?
There's light coming from every angle, and he's like, what is this?
Not familiar.
Just some cars driving by. The Cenobites show up, and they start throwing chains.
Well, before that, she says like, oh, it's Frank. Like, yes, it's Frank. He says that.
Yeah, that's right. He confirms for her.
Which was really important to the...
Well, because she kind of collapses next to the body and realizes that it's her dad, and there's that really sad moment. Yeah. So he's getting closer. Did you...
Oh, well, for some reason, what do you call those demons? The
Cenobites.
Cenobites really need him to say that. For some reason.
That's it. That's right. Yeah. We wanted to hear it from your mouth. Yeah, it's what he says. Like, yeah, I'm Frank.
It's kinkier that way.
Otherwise, it's not true, or it doesn't work. It's not binding. Frank gets chained everywhere, and this is another one of those moments where if they had lingered too long on the fleshes of skin, the patches of skin, it would be obvious that that's not real skin. But just like, even if you know it's not real, just the hook of it and pull just long enough to make you cringe and picture it on your own body is great. They start chaining him everywhere and everywhere, and then when he's like stretched to the brim, he starts licking his lips at Kirsty
that was great.
One last time, and then says this amazing final line, Jesus wept. The original, and then gets eviscerated, ripped apart. We don't really get to see it because Kirsty closes the door. Originally, the line in the script was, fuck you. He was just going to look at Kirsty and say, fuck you. But the actor said, I'd like to say Jesus wept. I think that'd be more impactful. And so they went with it, and I think it is.
Yeah.
Especially considering that there was a lot of Christ
There was a
imagery,
lot of
and
like Christian iconography, and like even when she's, I guess that one scene where she is walking into the house, she sees a I don't remember what it was.
It's Frank's exactly. Like Jesus, like cult. He like had like a Virgin Mary that he had like made obscene, and he had a bunch of Jesus and Christ imagery and things in there. And every character in the movie says Jesus Christ at least once at some point. And when Kirsty is creeping around into that wardrobe, when she first opens it, a Jesus figure pops out and scares her. And I literally thought, when it pops out, it goes, oh, Jesus Christ, and it's Jesus, and I like laughed to myself, and I thought that was hilarious. So he says Jesus wept, he gets ripped apart, and you'd think this was the end of it, But now the Cenobites are like, okay, your turn. We're here to take you. They were going back on their deal.
Yeah.
Like they have no honor.
This is why I don't make deals with demons. You know, they have
this is why you don't?
Yeah.
This is why one doesn't make the deals with demons.
Let this be a lesson to you kids. So now they're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, they're trying to get her. Yeah. But Steve shows up and is as the house is falling apart, she figures out how to send them back.
And this is what's weird to me. Is
It's weird.
It's always a different puzzle where you have to oh, now it's bop it, twist it.
You literally, you just have to. It goes up really slow, and then it goes down really slow, and then they get electrocuted away.
They turn green into
Why are they in pain this time? Every other time they left, it always seemed like it was just poof, vanish. But is it? So I was like, oh, is it because they didn't finish why they were summoned? Like usually when they're summoned, they do something and then close it on their own. This is the first time that they were summoned by someone and they didn't get them. Maybe
they just wanted to show her this pleasure thing so badly.
I just think it's hilarious that she uses it on 3 of the Cenobites. She sends Pinhead back, she sends the Chatterer back, and she sends the female Cenobite back. And then when the fat one with the glasses shows up and is about to get Steve, some rubble falls, crushes it, and that's it. Yeah. That's it. It's done. It's down.
You don't have to send him to the...
I imagine the police are going to find it later when they're clearing out the rubble. And who's this monster without guts? Oh my god!
So you're saying there were originally 4 of them? You sent 3 of them into the realm.
She didn't have to send that one back. Yeah, whatever. And then you still think it might be over, but the front door opens to a void. It's nothing outside. And then the engineer shows up again, and she drops the puzzle box, which now has created one new configuration that we've never seen before. Usually they've all been up and down, but this one is twisted for the first time, and you can tell that the box never did that before. It's got a new hinge on it. But this is another great moment where the engineer is just scrabbling, trying to get the box.
They're now trying to get the boxes. He's trying to keep her away from it. And so they're playing, I don't know what we call it.
Oh my god, it's kind of funny. It's kind of silly. They're just sitting in front of each other crisscross applesauce, just gimme, no, gimme, no. And then one of the best moments that the actress who plays Kirsty, Ashley Lawrence, this wonderful moment where she gets the box, Steve kind of reaches for it to help, and she goes God, give me you freaking idiot, you have no idea what you're doing, let me do this. And then fixes it. The engineer gets electrocuted away. They open the door again and it's outside, but the house is on fire and it's falling apart, so I assume they go a safe distance and watch the entire house burn all the way down to ash. No fire department came, no police were called, no one in the area saw. And then it's revealed that the house was near industrial buildings and things. It's so weird. I thought it was in the forest. And so then the final thing is Kirsty and her boyfriend Steve have the puzzle box and they walk over to a smoldering pile, put it in the fire, and the derelict shows up again.
Which was the hobo
from earlier who was eating crickets. He walks up to the fire, reaches his hand into the fire, and takes out the puzzle box. Then he catches on fire, sheds his skin, turns into a Baphomet skeleton goat head flying demon thing, flies away, and then it Looney Tunes back into the box from the very beginning in Morocco, where the guy says, "What's your pleasure, sir?" to a new guy that looks too much like Frank. What the hell? Oh my god, that was something that I was oh, is it a time loop? But no, it's just this Moroccan guy, I guess, has a deal with them somehow, maybe for eternal life.
Is that the
is he
the derelict changing his appearance?
Oh, I didn't think about that. I assumed he just is a deliverer, that the derelict goes wherever it's summoned, and then when it's done, he flies it back to Morocco.
I mean, that guy just sells boxes. He's just hustling.
Oh, God. So that's the movie of Pumpkinhead.
Pumpkinhead.
I mean, that's the movie of Pinhead. I mean, Hellraiser. So yeah, that's the recap. And now I'd like to go into some of the themes and things that we mentioned, I guess kind of earlier, but dive into them. Did you have any that you wanted to hammer on?
But yeah, there's a lot of like demon iconography, like mixed in with like Christian iconography.
That's a good place to start. Clive Barker was raised Catholic, and I don't know how seriously he's taking it now, considering he's openly gay. But there's some gay Catholics, and I have to imagine that played into a lot of the imagery and things. I mean, notwithstanding all the Jesus mentions and things, but that Frank, before he even started down the Cenobite path, was already defacing religious iconography, for fun? Yeah. Or was he like really seeking? I really wish they fleshed Frank out a little more. Really clear. No pun intended.
Flushed him to another dimension.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as Frank before he turns into the monster goes, is he's like a young. Let's try and break this down. Larry and Frank are brothers. Larry seems like a pretty well-rounded, if
maybe a little boring,
pathetic, a little boring, but he's safe. Brother to him, and Frank is like a druggie and sex maniac. Why is he invited to the wedding?
Well, he's his brother,
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, are you still going to invite toxic people who probably steal money from you and you haven't seen, like...
I don't know.
I don't know. That was hard for me to empathize. Is that something like... do you have any siblings?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Are there people in your life who you hate?
Who I'd still invite to the wedding?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Like, I'm not going to invite a past employer of mine, like, to the wedding if we had a bad relationship. Like, I don't know. So that was weird. But Frank is a monster, and Julia loves it, and it's a theme of this abusive relationship. Kind of being
like this bad boy.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, okay, maybe he's just gone to jail. It's just like a typical sort of, someone who doesn't fit in with society, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and then it's like,
that's what I mean. It's not clear how, like, when that starts happening. Like, is he already kind of like that when he shows up for Julia, or is it after he goes, nothing does it anymore, or whatever? I don't know. But
I guess we could tie that into the Christian thing of like, just being a hedonist, just seeking just raw pleasure, and this is where it'll get you. Sort of
that's from a moralistic standpoint, that it's giving into all your earthly pleasures and things at what cost? Right. See, this is the thing I like about horror movies, is it examines how far would we go to, I don't know, for like lustful nostalgia, to get that lover back that gave you everything you wanted in a way no man ever could, or no woman ever could, no person ever could. Yeah. But he's abusive, and I feel like that's a theme, is the idea of a person staying in a obviously abusive relationship, taken to the nth degree, where he's not beating her and he's not being verbally abusive, he's just forcing her to murder people for him. He's forcing her to throw all of her humanity and everything she decides is good about herself, or to be with him. Which
is, I guess, kind of ironic, because he just went through the same thing. He sought pleasure to such a degree that
that destroyed him.
It destroyed him. Yeah, and that's kind of happening.
And now that's what she's falling into. That she's going to pursue pleasure to the point of self-destruction. Yeah, and I feel like that's a definite reflection of the S&M clubs that the movies are kind of based around. So like I said, I've never been to those before, but based on TV and movies, I understand that there's two worlds. There's sadism, like, physically harming oneself or each other, and then there's masochism, which is like the bondage things, and I believe that's the difference. I might have them. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. I thought it was not all sadomasochists like pain. It's more about like discomfort, like body. Like they'll have those like leather restriction masks things that only zip up here, or they'll have compression suits. I don't know. Is that your understanding?
I thought like sadicus meant like you enjoy giving pain to others, and masochist means like you enjoy.
Oh, is that what it means? Sadism is inflicting pain, masochism is receiving pain.
I think so.
Oh, okay.
It could be. We should probably look that up to confirm.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Clive Barker, like, voluntarily went to these clubs before writing the story.
I need to do some research.
Or if he, had to do some research, or both. Yeah, I don't know. But that was something else we mentioned, is that Frank doesn't look like I would imagine somebody who who's just exhausted every earthly pleasure they can imagine. Like, he should either be obese, like from eating, like overindulgence, or he should be, I feel like he should be one of the extremes. I don't know. But think about real hedonists. Like, they're the wealthy. That's another thing. I feel like you'd have to be pretty wealthy to be able to enjoy all of Earth's worldly pleasures. I imagine some of the more, like, hostile level stuff is pretty expensive. But maybe he never got that far.
Yeah, but he's too busy.
Or maybe he was more concerned about physical, personal physical than pain on others. But you wouldn't know that with how hard he has sex, man. He's a rough lover.
But still 2 pumps.
Only 2 pumps. He's a 2 and done. Yeah, so the abusive relationship, coming back to that, I've personally never experienced that, and I don't think I know anyone in my life who's in one, but from what I understand, it can sometimes be, like, impossible to know without other people, like, reminding you what normal is. That the human mind can do all kinds of things to cope when it doesn't believe there's any way out. People will make up excuses, saying like, "Oh, you don't know him like I do," or "Oh, she's not the same person." Like
being in all those, we hear of these domestic abuse cases where the woman feels like, oh, this is kind of a normal thing now, and it's gone from...
Or they've been so beaten down by the physical and mental and verbal abuse that it's like, well, who else would love me like they do? Or, oh, this is what I deserve, or things like that. Julia seems to have more agency than that, in that she wants it and she's willing to make it happen, but she doesn't know what she's getting.
Right.
Like, what she wants is just an angry lover, and what she's getting is a psychopath, a murderous psychopath who spent 10 years in purgatory. It's not hell. They like make that distinction.
No.
I like to think it's the same realm that Event Horizon passes through. It's that movie with Sam Neill where they're on a ship that goes through a warp to travel, but the warp goes through what we would consider hell to get there, and so it destroys people's minds and stuff like that, kind of like a Warhammer. But I like to imagine that's the same realm there. But yeah, they say angels to some and demons to others. Are there really people who solved that puzzle box and were loving what they got? Seriously.
Let me do it again.
It seems like it's just immediate death it brings you. We don't see the other world that he's in.
We kind of see this like...
Oh, do we?
Well, we do see like his flesh being ripped out and like...
On like a spinning pillar?
And then, there's a spinning pillar with like pins stuck to it and like guts. And I don't know, I guess it's really pleasurable somehow.
I don't know. Maybe I haven't experienced enough earthly pleasures. I haven't skydived yet.
Yep. Don't do it, man. Next thing you know, you're going to be opening boxes too.
And I'll be becoming a slave to abusive people. Yep. I don't know. Anything else you wanted to hit on there before we move on to the next theme?
No, I think that's good.
Well, there's that stepmom theme. The idea of like, well, no matter how weird or whatever I feel about her, my dad likes her, and I need to support my dad. And it isn't until they have that Chinese restaurant scene that he opens up and says, I don't even think I love her. She doesn't even want to go outside. So like I said, both of my parents are married, and I've never had that. Do you have any step family or anything like that? Well, you said you don't have any siblings, but God, I wonder what am I trying to say here? Like, I didn't question a lot of the things that she wasn't questioning because of that relationship and that established like universalness of wanting to support your dad in a decision that you aren't so sure about, but you trust him. Like, you trust your parents.
Yeah.
You want to believe, as a person as old as Kirsty or even as young, that your parents aren't total idiots and will treat themselves with respect, and if they're going to love someone, then they're not going to be a monster.
Yeah, and I guess like it seems like an ordinary story at that point.
But he's in an abusive relationship. She's neglectful to him.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's like, why does he stick around with her?
Yeah, although I guess
it's not like she needed a mom.
Seen it before that point, though, right?
No, it's just when they first walk through the house, something about her seems...
Yeah, she seems off.
Off
She
and
seemed
distant, yeah. Maybe it was because she remembered this as Frank's house or something, or she's just remembering Frank, but I don't know. It seems like she was never... like.
Yeah, she says that she was never in love with Frank's son.
But
or no, for Larry.
With Larry, never. Yeah, that she was... Why did she marry him then? To get to Frank?
Yeah. Maybe he's really wealthy, but somehow wants to live in this weird... house in the middle of nowhere? No, it makes no sense.
Well, so I don't know, like, if there was supposed to be a thing there of, like, well, you know, sometimes step-parents who, you know, sometimes their relationship, you do want to talk and say, hey, this is how I feel. How do you feel? I assume you love her. Is that right? Like, because as a single parent with a, like, child or maybe two children, I would imagine that you get this feeling of like, hey, it's us. It's not just me making these decisions. It's like we as a group have to agree that this person is good for all of us. And so in this scenario, they're operating under the idea that, like, this has been going on for years, and Larry has a history of them not getting along because she's standoffish and Kirsty is a normal person. So I wonder if there's an air of, not a moral, but under the theme of new step-parents, being open, being honest with your family, and making it a joint decision.
That actually reminded me of a different part of the movie where he's going on I guess a date with what's his
Steve.
Oh, Steve, yeah. And they're going through like the tunnels or something like that. And she's slightly intoxicated, or I think they both are. And he says like, "Oh, why don't you like her?" And she's like, "Oh, she's very proper and very standoffish."
That's right. Yeah.
And she's kind of like,
whatever do you mean? He's like, "Oh, there it is. Whatever do you mean?" Yeah.
I know. And then it's like, she's kind of like you. I beg your pardon.
Oh, that's it. That's it. I beg your pardon. Yeah. What about that?
Well, I guess like maybe it's, see, if it was taking England, like maybe that could be a cultural difference thing, but I'm not sure if it was.
I don't know. But yeah, you're right. That's the only concrete reason she gives for not liking Julia. God, Julia's a really terrible person, too, for marrying someone she knows she doesn't love, just to string him along for the rest of his life.
We don't get her motive.
For no reason? Like, if Frank never appeared, was she just going to continue this? Like, that's a really just horrible life.
Like, oh boy, I hope he comes back as a demon.
Or when he gets out of prison, I'm going to leave this guy, but this is how I stay close to the family.
Yeah.
Maybe. What a horrible, horrible thing. So I think we already touched on another one that I have here is love equals murder. That she's getting these, like, there's a lot of the, like, false pretenses thing that Julia is going out and getting these Johns under false pretenses to make love, so that she can give them to Frank under false pretenses that they'll make love. All of these, like, levels of sexual deception in this movie, all leading to murder, of, like, this Black Widow mentality that people... that the power of boners, whether it's on a man or a lady boner, is very strong, and it will make you not keep your wits about you. It will make you not question things that maybe you should question, and it'll get you murdered. And so, yeah, maybe the power of...
And I guess that does follow back into the hedonist thing. Like, don't pursue your pleasures until...
That's really good, that this theme of following your lust will lead to your demise, is total and is capitalized 100% in the Cenobites. That this is the pinnacle of what everyone in this movie is doing, is letting their lust do the talking. So then the Christ imagery too, and all of the, like, they say Jesus Christ, and we see all of the defacing and things.
Yeah, and there's like,
what about it?
There's like what do you call them? Crosses throughout the movie, just like, sprinkled in.
None of the Cenobites really reflect any, like, they look demonish, but not like, the only directly Christ thing that I can think of is the Baphomet, the goat-headed demon thing that flies away at the end, because that looks a lot like, I say Baphomet because I think that's a biblical Judeo thing of goat-headed demon.
I'll buy it.
Yeah. But Yeah, so I feel like that's the only direct tie into this answer to the Christianity thing.
How do they speak English? You know,
how do the Cenobites speak English? Maybe it's like whoever opens it.
Yeah. They just speak every language.
Yeah, that if like they opened in Africa, it would speak whatever they spoke in Africa. God damn it. I feel like we already talked about that one. So yeah, the last one that I have, unless you have any others, is the pleasure and pain thing, which is obviously the biggest theme. Is that some people's pain can be another person's pleasure, or your own pain could be pleasure. And I feel like it's not hit on a small enough scale to really like give us there's no relatable thing for me. I don't do that. I feel like maybe I'm on my high horse, but I consider myself a healthy person that doesn't like pain. I don't like getting choked or my hair pulled, and there's escalating things of that.
Sure.
There are all kinds of things that people like to do.
I'm with you, but what about like, were you ever like kind of full, but like there was still ice cream? You're like, I just gotta have that, even though I know I'll be like painfully full.
For me, it's pizza, but
pizza,
or spaghetti.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
There's like some gluttony there. And,
Oh, definitely, because it becomes more about the sensation than the fullness.
Yeah.
I'm not eating to sustain myself or to gain myself nutrition. I'm enjoying the feeling of swallowing it.
Yeah,
literally,
it's tasty.
like it tastes good. It feels good to chew and to swallow it. But now it's just making me feel bad.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bit of that.
But I'm not seeking the bad parts. I'm seeking the pleasure part of that despite of the pain.
Sure.
So I see that. This is kind of the world of people seeking out miniature versions of pain. Like, there are some people that, like, pull, like, leg hairs out of themselves just because they like the feeling of that, or, will pluck pubes or things, just because they like it. There's people who, will scratch at something way longer than they should because they just like the sensation of it. But
There's also, like, I know your brain, when you do experience pain, it does fire off some, pleasure receptors to begin with.
Endorphins, right?
Endorphins, yeah. And I think the reason for that is so that you keep going through that pain biologically. I think
to keep you safe? Like, if you're running from a predator and you're in a little bit of pain, you still got to keep going?
Yeah, let's say you get your leg caught on something, you still have to stay upbeat. I don't know how to... Still motivated to keep running. So you kind of ignore that pain with a little bit of endorphin.
That, I feel like I've heard that before, that endorphins are released during pain and obviously during pleasure.
Sure.
It could definitely be like an unintentional psychological effect, of growing up in a really horrible home and, misconstruing shouting, for love, and then communicating that when you get older and it becomes a cycle like that. But I don't know. This is tricky territory. I don't want to judge anybody who enjoys the kinds of things, but this movie seems to really want to establish that there are metaphysical consequences to enjoying the physical pleasure. So yeah, this movie, I thought you would enjoy it because of the big obvious moral of keep it in check, keep it in your pants. Yeah. There's other things to life than physical enjoyment.
Right.
Yeah.
I did like that part of it. I very much like that moral part of it, but it's also like so supernatural to me. That's kind of so unrelatable.
Yeah, it's just like way to the top, way further than I could. Yeah, like. So I don't know if this movie was a like direct condemnation on those kinds of people. I think it's just playing on, we know they exist. They could be right next to us. This just kind of introduces that and plays on it. And I think it's why I like it so much and I consider it so successful, is that it takes the other, which, that are humans that enjoy things, and we go, oh, well, that's deviant. That's disgusting behavior, and I would never consider myself like that. And it shows us what the worst one looks like and what happens.
It reminds me a little bit of that movie, like Seven Sins, or what's that movie called?
Seven, with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
Yes. And,
in what way?
Well, I mean, that movie is like all about the 7 deadly sins. So we see. I guess it's a little bit different than.
Well, it's more spread out.
Yeah.
Because he's punishing people for specific like sins, gluttony, wrath.
Right.
One of them is lust. Do you remember how he takes out the lust one?
I don't.
She's a model, and he broke into her home and sedated her on the bed and gave her glued a bottle of high-strength sleeping pills into one hand and a knife in the other, and said, "I'll be back." And you have 2 options. You can cut your nose off, and when I get back, I'll set you free, or you can take the pills and kill yourself. And she takes the pills and kills herself. That wasn't lust. Sorry, that was pride. I don't remember the lust one. I feel terrible. It must be horrible. Yeah. That's a good movie, though.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about Seven. We're talking about Hellraiser, which I keep wanting to call Pinhead. Because, God, he just looks so good.
Iconic, yeah.
So, yes, those are the themes. We're going to wrap up today's episode with one of my favorite parts, the part where we rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 5 thumbs, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, on whatever metrics we like to rate movies. Maybe it's on the makeup effects, maybe it's on the music, maybe it's on the director's style, anything we want, any combination of those. Mike, what'd you think about Hellraiser?
So I did see the IMDb page, and it gets like a 7 out of 10. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. And then I saw that it has so many sequels. I was like, oh, people really like this. But then I saw it for myself, and I was like, okay, all right. Yeah, I didn't quite enjoy it as much, even though
that's okay.
I thought visually it was a great movie. But
why not? Can you give us some insight?
I guess part of it is I don't quite like as much superficial or supernatural things, and this one is kind of like randomly thrown in there. There's this cube that's puts you in this world, and not much is explained out of it. The other thing is like no character really grows. I guess you can say what's her name?
Kirsty?
Not Kirsty.
Julia?
Julia grows a little bit before she dies. Like, well...
Into a worse person?
Into a worse person,
Yeah.
She becomes okay with killing.
Which is a great transformation to watch her go throughout the movie.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about character development and themes. And there were some themes. This whole hedonist, don't follow your passions to the nth degree. But still, not much there in terms of
to each his own.
Yeah.
I like that explanation though.
Yeah.
How many thumbs would you give it?
How many thumbs? So this is kind of tough to say because I think it was. When I say this is better than what's the last movie? So
Graveyard Shift.
Graveyard Shift. Maybe a little better.
Which
than
I think
that.
we gave a 1 thumb. So
I gave it a 1 thumb, but I don't think it was as good as Pumpkinhead, which I give 2. So I'll put it around the 1.5 thumbs.
Ooh, 1.5 thumbs. That's the first time we've ever given half a thumb.
Yeah.
Who do your thumb and a half belong to?
Oh, okay. So it would have to be the merchant, the Moroccan or Chinese merchant.
What's your pleasure,
Yeah.
sir?
Yeah, he definitely gets 1 thumb. Who do I give the half to? Probably victim number 1 who wanted to get naked.
Yeah. Honestly, he gets the most lines of all of the victims, and he's got some confidence, man. Just goes right over to her. It's not fun drinking alone.
Yeah.
Can I get you another one? Hey, Bobby. Oh, it's a nice flat you have here. Cool.
Yep. How about you?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, so thank you for asking. Clive Barker's Hellraiser, 1987. I actually have a little bit of a relationship with Clive Barker's work. The first thing I ever read of his was a novel called Mr. Begone, which I absolutely devoured, and it made me dive into a lot of things. I can't help but identify with him being gay, which is great to hear and see someone in the industry putting forth incidental gays and scenes like that. But the work itself, Hellraiser, I love this movie. I really do. To be honest, the opening act where it ends with Frank popping out of the ground. That scene is so great. The look of the Cenobites and the way the chains like fly across the room
look great.
is so iconic, and it still holds up today. The dream sequence that Kirsty goes through still blows my mind. That crying baby is so effective. All the tiny moments from the nail scratching his hand to the inflating heart underneath, to the big ones like the engineer, as sloppy as the large shot looks, the more intimate ones of it clawing at Kirsty's legs look so good. There aren't any like extra characters that have nothing to do except for Steve. Yeah, I love that. I actually like that Steve has no real agency, and Kirsty is the one that actually takes it upon herself to make a deal with the fucking devils and do all of this to save her dad. It's never too complicated. Like there's never too many relationships to keep track of. I was even able to get through the recap in a sensible way when there's like, at the end with the dramatic irony of what we know and what she knows and all of that. It's so great. I love this movie. That said, I'm going to give it 4 thumbs because as good as it is, there is a couple movies on my mind that I'm holding out for to give 5 thumbs to, but this is one of the best ones in my opinion.
And who would you give those 4 thumbs to?
I'm going to give 2 of those thumbs to Frank with those nasty dirt under all of his fingernails. Like, dude, just once, take your fingernails and go like this, or wash them or something.
Put them in soap and water.
That's 2 thumbs. I'm going to give 1 thumb to Bill, the incidental gay attorney that was at the party on the night of the paper hat. And I'll give my final thumb to the nurse, who apparently loves watching flowers blooming on TV. I want to see her story. I want to know what she was doing during this movie with the doctor. I loved Hellraiser. Anything else you want to say?
Oh, that's about it.
Are you excited to watch Hellraiser 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10? And I think they're coming out with... No, 11 was the most recent one.
So it still is going, the series?
I don't know. The most recent one was 2016, I think.
Okay,
So
that's pretty recent.
It is, but I'm not sure if they're making any more. One final thing I wanted to mention is Clive Barker hates that his character is called Pinhead. Even to this day, he's invented this character that he has a lot of respect for, and everyone calls him Pinhead, which sounds like a rude term. So
Pinhead.
So in 2015, Barker published a sequel to the Hellbound Heart, the original story that introduces the Cenobites, called The Scarlet Gospels, which features Pinhead getting annoyed when people call him that, as well as Pinhead's ultimate demise. Officially, in Clive Barker's 2015, he kills Pinhead. He's completely dead. So it just goes to show that, sometimes artists, you send something out into the world and it just doesn't belong to you anymore.
Yeah. Did he give him another name?
It's just lead Cenobite, or the priest. But no, I think that's important to mention, is that when you create something, no matter how much you love it, after you're done creating it, you have to let it go. It's up for other people's interpretation now.
And you should give it a catchy name, or else it's gonna something else is
or
gonna stick.
It'll never do well in the U.S. And make sure no one has a British accent. Otherwise, thanks for listening.
One more thing. I was watching it on Hulu with the captions on, and for some reason the captions were like way off in the beginning of the film, but it slowly sinks. And I was wondering if maybe that's the Britishness, like they originally filmed it with the British.
Where they're like colour and things like that?
No. Like maybe when they originally... Well, actually that doesn't even make sense. I thought like maybe before they dubbed it, maybe it lined up perfectly, but then I didn't.
That's fine. But with that, we will say goodbye to everyone out there. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The Gory Days. And if you want your thoughts read here on the podcast, just give us a tweet or a like or whatever. Stay scary out there.
The gory days, the gory days, the gory days.